Hey, give me just 1 second here. Hold
Mm-hmm.
on. Hey, Frodo, you need to decide whether you're going out or in.
Mm-hmm.
Come on. You okay? You say something to him, and he just rolls over because he doesn't want to go in his cage.
Every time you do that, I like to imagine that it's Elijah Wood just cowering in your bedroom.
That's horrifying. Nothing ever dampens your spirits, does it, Dan?
There it is. There it is. That was the thing. I think in our first episode, I said my goal is to get your Elijah Wood impression, and there it is.
Yeah, and I said it had to come organically. Yeah, my entire day has been stressful.
Oh yeah.
So, yeah,
Do
actually
tell.
more just like this entire last week, and it's a lot of it is because started um I started school, about a month ago now or so,
Right.
and just the school and work together because I work full time and have a full time schedule at school is just like a lot. But now that this like particular, I guess if you want to call it an internship, it's the social media lab thing that I've mentioned before, has like kind of kicked into full gear. We're like working with real clients, and I'm working with two different ones.
Right. And we've talked about it, but I think that ended up getting cut. So the quick
Oh,
recap
really?
is you're doing a social media thing through school where you're getting to run a couple different companies' social media strategies.
Yeah, it's essentially just like an independent study that our school marketing program offers, and so I'm kind of working with that. And in one group, I'm working with two other people, and I'm just sort of like there helping. And then in the other group, it's me and another person, and I volunteered to be the team lead, just sort of like for experience's sake. So with that, there's just it's been like a really like fun and interesting thing. But it's also like it feels like a lot of work. Like once we actually get started doing everything, it may end up being like, oh, this wasn't as hard as I thought it would be. But
But is it kind of in that it's hard work, but it's actually fun work kind of thing?
oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that's what I always felt like with college projects, like within my major,
Yeah,
was it could be immensely harder than a different class, but like 2 hours of work in a week for a class I didn't care about felt way worse than like 16 hours of work in one of my computer science classes or something, because it's like applicable and it's the thing that I'm actually interested in.
yeah. And it's weirdly like I'm finding it the out of the two, the one that I'm finding easier to wrap my head around is oddly the one that I'm in charge of, because it's one of those, really it's just one of those things where like you're kind of in the controlling position, so everything's going, whereas in the other group, like I'm not good with groups. Well, no, I won't say that. Like I'm fine with groups. There's aspects of working in a group that kind of make me nervous sometimes when you don't know the people
Yeah, yeah.
extremely well. And it's just basic stuff, and it's stuff that like with this particular group, like I'm sure it'll be fine. Like the people and the person who's the team lead is great, and the company we're working with is amazing, and like all that sort of stuff. But it's also one of those things where it's like I would, because I'm more paranoid type personality, I'm more like over and above on top of stuff. And so like with the other group that I'm the team lead, like I'm constantly sending the other person, probably to that person's annoyance, like okay, this is an outline of my notes, and then the other thing is like a scope document of what we're going to be doing. And both documents are essentially very similar, but one's just more my own like outline for my own personal brain. But I'm just like sharing lots of information, lots of stuff that the person probably doesn't need. So I may actually be annoying in that aspect,
Yeah,
but
you're being me in this podcasting project.
possibly, yeah, yeah. If that's what you're doing,
It's like, do you find yourself trying to go to sleep and your mind is just racing, coming up with things you could do? And
yeah. Well, I get that too with this podcast. I'm just normally not doing all the editing and like that heavy lifting sort of stuff. But in this, but yeah, if that's what you feel like doing, that side of things, then yeah, that I guess that would be really comparable.
yeah, because it's like an organizational thing. Like it's not like ideas for the podcast per se. It's more like you go to bed and you're trying to sleep, and then all of a sudden you're like, ooh, I should add this thing to the website. And then all of a sudden your brain is just deep into that mundane little thing that
Yeah.
nobody else really cares about, but because you feel this ownership over the thing.
Yeah, that's probably exactly it. It's just like I think with the podcast stuff, like a lot of the more technical side of things, I'm not really experienced with. So it's sort of just
Right.
one of those things where it's like, well, that's your wheelhouse. So I won't worry about those things at all.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. So like with this one, especially the one where you're sort of the manager, so to speak, you kind of are having that same sort of experience. It sounds like.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good point. Good observation. So yeah, so it's actually like a lot of fun though, and it's like it's kind of cool whenever like this is exactly what I was hoping it would be like because I picked kind of the marketing type focus of my degree because I figured that of all the things that I could do that are actually relevant job degree fields, like that one seemed to have the most openness for like a creative element, and I'm finding
Right.
like that's what I like about it. Like as stupid as it sounds, and I realize this is not the same thing at all. Like I remember one of the things I enjoyed doing like when we were in high school is if you remember our legendary Halo parties that we would throw, like I would like make a list of like because a lot of people don't realize it, but back then when you're dealing with the Xbox, it was like the very first model. There was a lot that had to go into that. Like if you're having a party and linking together 8 TVs and 8 boxes and eight, like you have to make
Across two
sure.
floors with
Yes,
switches
you
and
have to make sure you have all the cords. You have to make sure you have all the boxes, all the copies,
oh,
all the
it was a whole
controllers, all.
operation.
Oh yeah. So it was a lot, and I'm the one that did that. And like I remember like loving now that's more of like that specifically is like event planning. But I remember even getting down to stuff like if we were gonna make exception if someone couldn't bring money for pizza, then I'd mark that down. We had to make sure the pizza money was covered. You bringing $5? Yeah. You bringing this? Yeah. Okay. Like are you bringing a soda bottle or not? Can we rely on you? Do we need to compensate for it? Like things like that. Like it was like I just remember it being a lot of fun, and it turned out like really like I think the biggest one we had in that small tiny house was like 24 people, and yeah, eight boxes, 8 TVs over 2 floors. Not a big house,
Yeah.
and
Although that
so
almost helps in that instance.
yeah, so this is one of I mean, there's been other instances like that over the years since then, but this is one of the first times, like in a professional setting, that I've kind of felt that feeling where even though it's like a small internship, it's kind of like, oh, wait, this is like we get to like for instance, like one thing that one of them wanted to do was to improve some aspects of a website, and so even though I'm not a programmer, and so I wouldn't be doing anything like that, just the fact that we might actually get to sit down at one point and go like, okay, what sorts of things can we do to tweak the image of this, compare it to other things, and like just coming up with a plan, like a Word document, just to send to them and say like, we think these are good ideas. Like that sounds exciting to me.
Now this is sort of your first foray into seeing what this career path actually looks like potentially
Yes.
in the real world, right?
Right.
That is one of my favorite things is talking to people in like doing like whenever people do an internship or something for the first time
Yeah.
because while, some percentage of the time they're like, "Holy cow, I need to change my major. I've now realized I hate this." For a lot of people it's like that's when people get into college, I feel like, is
Yeah.
when you've it's not just the first class that has to do with your major, but it's the first time you get a taste of like producing or doing a thing in the real world that's related to the things that you're learning, like getting to apply that knowledge.
Yeah.
And then when you go back to school, you have this new context for everything that gets said. And you're like, oh, I could have applied that in this situation here. And I don't know.
Yeah.
For me, at least, that like changed everything.
Well, not only that, like to me, I mean, obviously it's a common thing, but because a lot of schools are trying to push hands-on activities, but hands-on activities really do just for me personally, I operate better that way. So like to give an
Right.
example, like a lot of companies nowadays use an application called Hootsuite. And and I haven't completely dove into it yet, but we're going to be utilizing it with different people this semester as well. And essentially, my understanding of it is a lot of like companies and stuff will use it for like scheduling social media things, like when they're supposed to be posted. You can completely like mock up the entire copy, if you will, for what you're going to post down to hashtags and everything, and you can schedule it to be posted. So you could like do all your social media stuff hypothetically one day a week, and then your whole next week is covered, sort
Yeah,
of
and
thing.
this is a suite that lets you post to multiple accounts like
Right,
Facebook
multiple
and
platforms.
right, right,
Yeah.
right.
And so I had a social media class with the professor that's doing this like this independent study that I'm in. And I remember Hootsuite being mentioned as like something like and it being talked about, but I immediately forgot everything about it because I was like, oh, okay. Like I couldn't even remember once the semester was over or told you what it was. Just because like I learned the stuff for the test, get it done. And but whenever you're actually like using stuff, like I mean, it was like, oh, this is actually like genius. Like this is a
Right.
really cool thing. And just like looking at it for about 5 minutes yesterday, just to like familiarize myself with it. You're like, oh, this seemed really intimidating and complicated at first, but then you just look at it and you're like, oh, this is really simplistic. And then also find out that you can get an app for it on your phone too. So like a lot of this stuff I can even run off my own personal phone.
Yeah, yeah. I actually have I have the Hootsuite app on my phone.
Yeah.
I
So
haven't really been using it. I've tended to prefer the like official apps for Facebook and Twitter so far, but I haven't really gotten into it. So I'm really curious to see what you learn.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, and I'll definitely get hands-on experience with that this semester, but it looks pretty straightforward. I've heard that different platforms will have limitations as to what they'll allow you to do, and I don't know
Right.
if that's related to licensing or whatever. But like for instance, say like I'm just using this as an example. I don't know if this is the case, but like let's say Instagram. Like you can load it in there and do everything in advance for what you want it to be posted, but they might have like a weird like licensing issue or technicality to where you can have it all ready to go, but that particular platform, you have to actually go in and press a button to post it live.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
and that was sort of like I kind of picked that up whenever people were talking about it in one of our meetings. So, um, and so I don't know if that's the case for Instagram, but like my understanding is there's some platforms like
I
that.
know Twitter is a strangely locked down social network. Like they used to
Yeah.
have a lot of open APIs and they've slowly sort of rolled those back. And so there's a couple third party Twitter clients, but a lot of them struggle because, new features that Twitter comes out with, they don't even create APIs for. So like you can't even create or read Twitter polls from any third party app because
Huh.
they just never even open that up. I think it's the same for like the cards, like if you post a link and it kind of gives you the picture and a bunch of interactive stuff. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's kind of frustrating from like a developer point of view because it used to be this like big open world of APIs that you could sort of play around in, and a lot of them have kind of either locked them down or like limited their scope of what they can do.
Interesting. Yeah. I mean, yeah, it kind of makes sense. I wish like that they would all just sort of make everything user friendly, because it seems like it would be only beneficial.
Yeah, I think a part of the reason is because it makes development for them harder. So like if Twitter wants to add something, they have to make it work with their API so that it can work with all these third party apps, as opposed to it only having to work with the things that they officially endorse. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So I think it allows them to develop more rapidly, or at least that's their excuse.
Yeah, it makes sense. So overall though, I'm looking forward to like kind of getting my hands on some of these like different things. Like even stuff like I'm just kind of immediately forced and thrown into using stuff that I'm not used to using because I've never had to. Another thing is like we've even been using it for the podcast is Google Docs, which you just kind of sort of immediately shared a document with us that we both have been editing, and so I kind of got the gist of it, and then but I didn't really know how to use it per se, even though it's pretty simplistic. And so someone said like, "Yeah, just send that to me via Google Docs." And so I immediately like froze for a second and panicked, like, "Oh, I don't know how to use that. I'll have to learn how to use." And then I was like, "Oh, you know what? It's a Google thing, so I bet you." It's just one of the applications when I sign into my Gmail and I can click on it and then I can just hit share with someone. And sure enough, You just hit dot 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 on the document you're working on, and
Yep.
there's all the options that you need. So, and same with like Google Drive. Like for instance, some of our clients, in order to use social media stuff, they have to give you access to stuff, whether it be content that they want to be posted, like pictures, or like so they'll just say like, oh, we'll just share you our Google Drive link, and so it's really cool. Because at first I was a little overwhelmed because it's like, well, how does things shared? Because I don't want to accidentally like put something out there that ends up like being shared to everyone I know on Google. And then I realized it's just really straightforward. Whoever you've shared it with, it's shared there, and then you can all consolidate it into one spot. And so like I look at my Google Drive and I look at things that people have shared with me for different projects, and then the one that we have for this podcast. And it's just really cool to like kind of get to use even just simplistic day-to-day tools like that.
Yeah, for one of our business, what was the class? It was a big it was because my degree was sort of a dual business and computer science degree, and so we were on the
Mhm.
kind of business track. And so the big like senior project class for business was you formed into these teams and you ran a simulation widget company. I think it may have been like chips or something, but it was one of those like simulations where you set prices and each week the market responds, and there's a bunch of different teams that you're sort of up against. And
Mhm.
the main thing was these papers. You wrote 3 different papers throughout that year. I think it was a whole year thing. And so we'd have all 4 of us on our team just shared a Google Doc, which, you can like both be editing at the same time.
Right.
And we'd 3 different times we wrote these like 150-page papers on, like big financial reports on the simulation thing that we were doing. And we would all be sitting in the computer lab together editing this single document. It was kind of crazy, but also like really, really cool.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting for sure. It's just like I feel kind of stupid because like these are like simplistic things that lots of people use all the time that I haven't,
Yeah, but
but
that's what
it's
makes these
also
labs so awesome.
yeah,
Because a lot of times, all it takes is a little bit of experience to at least be able to speak intelligently about what a thing is.
yeah,
And so, a tiny bit of experience with something can go a long way into like letting you be able to choose the right tools whenever you're starting something new.
yeah, exactly. And also just part of it is like I've never really had a need to use any of them until now.
Right.
So it's not like I've avoided it, it's just I've not needed to.
So, speaking of Instagram, actually, we had some follow up. I guess it was a couple episodes ago that we talked about how we use social media. We kind of went through at least what we called the big 3, which
Yeah,
we were calling Facebook, Twitter, and Reddit, right?
right.
So, not directly, but through another party, um, there was apparently somebody that was a little upset that we said that those were the big 3
Mhm.
and that we left out what this person thought was the biggest one. I won't name any names, Noah.
Someone I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, you actually might not know this person.
So I can badmouth them and cuss them out, right?
Yeah, well, you do it more if you did know him.
Oh, okay.
So
Okay, fair enough.
I'm going to send you a link.
Is Noah aware that Instagram was purchased by Facebook? It was sort of like Facebook was an umbrella
It was
for
kind
that
of a
sort of.
big deal. Well, right. I've always thought of Instagram as sort of an arm of Facebook, which is funny because it wasn't. I actually used to think of Instagram as a Twitter like spinoff, but then whenever
Noah.
Facebook bought them, so that Hello Internet podcast that I really like, they made a joke kind of like that at one point, but they were using an anonymous name and they named the person Tim.
Yeah.
And from then on, all of the listeners of Hello Internet are known as Tims.
Yeah, I've noticed that because like I started with the first couple episodes of that podcast, but I haven't listened to every one. But like I've just kind of jumped around to random ones, or like when a new episode will come out, and I've noticed that phrase being used, and I figured it out based on context, but I still haven't hit the
Yeah,
episode yet where
exactly.
it was born.
Yes, they're the Tims. I don't think the Noahs work.
So we can just use Noah as the F word, then I guess.
Ooh, I do like
That'll
that.
just be our replacement.
So I just sent you a link. This is
Yes.
the based on market share, the top social networks used in the United States, Now, this is based on the end of 2016 because they do it by year, and so 2017 obviously isn't over yet. But could you read out once you get that open what those top
Yeah.
networks are
So
and give us the
okay.
percentages?
So number one is Facebook at 42.1%.
Which is almost half of all
Yes.
social networking.
Yes.
Which is
They
kind of
are like
crazy.
they are the Apple of the social media.
Well, Apple
Um
isn't. Well, yeah, we won't get into that.
yeah. YouTube comes in a close second at 25.2%, so not
Which
close
I
at all.
believe we mentioned that in our episode, right?
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
I said, what do you count? And you said YouTube, and I was like, oh yeah, I guess that counts. But
Yeah.
we weren't really kind of counting that as a social
Right.
network when in our main discussion.
And then at number 3, Instagram is not there. It is Twitter at 5.3%.
I was really confused. I thought I sent you the wrong link for a second.
And then let's see what comes next. It is Reddit
Boom.
at 5.1.
Yep.
Pinterest at 1.7.
That's right.
Tied with Instagram. Noah?
Instagram is tied with Pinterest.
Noah?
Does that mean you're cussing me out? Is that what's happening right now?
No. I think it's different. It's funny. This is an aside. Has nothing to do with this social media thing, but it does have to do with the using someone as a cuss word. So in high school, me and my friend Nick, who Nick of Nick's Corner, famously of Nick's Corner.
Yeah, we have to get him in somehow.
Right. Yeah. So me and him had a drama teacher in high school, and it probably wouldn't be a problem if I mentioned her name, but I'm just gonna go ahead and not. It was funny because we would always take advantage of her because she was a lot of fun and she liked us. At least I think she did. She got pretty mad sometimes, but we would use her microwave as a locker.
What?
we
Wait, what?
we would put books and stuff in there and hold them till next classes, and she would get mad because we'd turn it around, and then she got mad at us one time. She's like, you cannot use my microwave as a locker, and you certainly can't turn it around on my desk. And we're like, well, we got to set it against the wall or people would get in it. And so we would just do stuff like that. But all this to say, we also used her name as an expletive. So I don't know how exactly that started.
Was her name Head?
No, it wasn't. It was not. Otherwise, yeah, oddly enough, no one really got it because her last name was the F word. Anyways, back to Noah.
I think the whole point of this segment was just to say you're wrong.
Yeah.
Yep.
Not even close.
Right.
It wasn't even in fourth.
Just don't Google it because you might come across a lot of global market share, which totally doesn't count, which may or may not put Instagram higher on the list.
The trinity of the social media world, it is not, for sure. It is not in there.
Yep. I think that's fair to say.
It's not the Father. It's not the Son. It's not the Holy Spirit. Or Ghost, depending on where you live. Those are reserved for Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube.
And Reddit, if you want to not count YouTube.
Yeah.
So that makes it more right.
Boom, Noah.
So we've had this in our notes for, I think, a couple weeks. And you have not told me this story, even though I've hung out with you since then.
Yeah.
So I need to know, what is your parking ticket protest?
You
Wow.
just really knowed that sentence. So my parking ticket protest.
Yeah.
So this is a long tale that I will give probably way too much detail of.
These are always the best stories with very little payoff.
Back in a little time frame called July. No. June. Okay, so June, I went into the city to meet my old roommate to grab a beer and just kind of catch up because he had moved out recently and we were just hanging out. And so we met up in the city in St. Louis. It was in the city, but not in like a heavily trafficked part of town, and not like in the center, you know. And so I pull in, see a parking spot, perfect, it's open, park there. I even messed up and paid the meter like 3 times and didn't understand why it wasn't charging more. And it was because it was like 15 minutes until 7, and at like 7 o'clock it didn't charge anymore.
Ah.
So I paid 25 cents 3 times, so it wasn't a big deal. I just kept was like, why won't it give me more time than 25 cents? But anyway, so like I was like going above and beyond. I felt like to make sure I wasn't gonna get a parking ticket because I had actually gotten a parking ticket across the street in that exact location like a month earlier, and I ended up paying that. Now, these parking tickets
What you
aren't a
do
big.
is you save the parking ticket and then you just throw it on your windshield and then you never pay the meter.
Yeah. Yeah, they check those though. But
Mm.
these parking tickets, by the way, are not a big deal. These sorts of parking violations are $25. That's it.
It's
So it's
more
not a
the
big deal.
inconvenience of paying it.
Yeah. So I come out, I have a parking ticket. I'm looking at it, and I was just like so mad because, like, you feel like, okay, this time, I've gotten a parking ticket here before. That was my problem. This time, I'm like, I'm doing it right. I got this going. And the first time the parking ticket was just for like, I guess, like the time frame or something like that. Like, that's what it was for. It wasn't for like a violation in any other way. But this time I was like, what on earth could I have possibly got a ticket for? I paid that stupid thing 3 times. I know that I wasn't, and these guys are like sitting on this like bench outside the brewery, and they're like, hey, yeah, we saw that, man, like that was messed up, like we were arguing with them that was
Oh
stupid.
man.
And it's like, so these like three
You had some
guys.
local defense.
Yeah, yeah, they're like, that's just messed up. And I was like, well, what is this even for? And I'm looking at, and they're like, well, he said it was because you pulled in head first into the parking spot. I was like, what? I was like, where are even his
Wait,
signs for
what?
that? And so, I'll explain. So up the road, like there is like signs, like random, like kind of randomly posted, like very far apart. Like these signs are always posted just so that they can say they're there
Yeah,
and they
yeah.
can properly blame you, but not clear enough to where it's really that clear. And so then there's another one close to me from the direction I was actually coming from, but it was clearly like behind a bush. Like if you just looked from my car standing up, it's like behind a bush. And so that made me mad. And there were some up the other direction, but I didn't come from that direction. So honestly, I didn't really see them.
Right.
But so what this is it's a 2-lane road. And on both sides of the road, you have diagonal parking spaces. Okay.
Okay.
Now, the
Yeah.
diagonal parking spaces face opposite directions on each side of the road. Okay.
Opposite
Now,
of the direction you're driving.
yes.
Okay.
So,
So it's easier to back into.
no. Well, yeah, yeah, if you're in that lane. So
Right.
the establishment that I was going to was across the street. So I pulled in head first into a diagonal parking spot because that was the easiest maneuver to do. Now, you are allowed to park there coming from the lane that I was in. But what they said was for safety reasons on that street, you are not allowed to pull in head first. Instead, I'm guessing you have two options. You either go up the road, turn around a block, and then come back down in the lane the other way, and then stop and back into the parking spot. Or you pull a U turn in the middle of this 2-lane road and then back into the parking
Yeah,
spot.
almost seems like it'd be more dangerous for people to do that than to just pull
Right,
in head
right,
first.
right. Yeah, and the only like technicality I can think of is like it's been a long time since I've had to read that like Missouri driver's manual, but I think like double solid lines means you're not supposed to cross them, but it's also unclear based on like the color and like if you're in the city because this wasn't a
And I
highway.
think the
It's
phase of the
a
moon is important
yeah,
there.
yeah. That's relevant somehow too.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and so I'm just so mad because I can just picture Noah sitting there right now going, "Well, it's your fault." Um, but yeah. So the violation itself didn't make any sense to me. But and so I called them. Okay, so basically how it works is you have 22 days to pay this ticket. Okay, which is also just a weird, like, stick your finger in the air and see where the wind's blowing amount of time that they give you. Not a month, not like 2 weeks, but 22 days. Not 3 weeks, 22 days. And so, like, that's sort of weird too, but I digress. It's not a big deal. So they give you 22 days, says that on the ticket. It's $25 ticket. So I call maybe 2 weeks later And I'm like, and this is like, by this point, it's like end of June, beginning of July. And so I say, hey, I think this is kind of crazy. Like the sign was in a weird spot. Even the guys that were sitting there said that they thought it was kind of a dumb thing. And I was like, I know it's probably not going to go anywhere, but it does say I have the option to have you guys do an investigation. And I told them, I was like, if I can do anything to like, fix this problem to make it more clear for people in the future that don't make the same mistake, that'd be great. And so they're like, okay, we'll do an investigation. So then they send me a letter in the mail in July that says, it says, okay, you don't have to pay the ticket right now. Like your 22-day countdown isn't currently going, so you don't have to worry about
while it's
that.
contested or whatever. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, which makes total sense. So then in August, this was about just over 3 weeks ago now. So in August, I get a letter in the mail saying, hey, we looked into it. You still got to pay the ticket, which I figured that's what it would be anyway.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, fine. So now I could have paid it immediately, but it was one of those things where like I was sitting down budgeting, and I was like, well, this is because it said you have 22 days to pay it, and so I was like, okay, well, I mean, I have 3 weeks. I get paid in 2 weeks again, and so I'm just gonna push. Because it wasn't just that. It wasn't like I was just moving around $25. I was moving around that and a couple other things. Because like, okay, I'll pay those next paycheck. And so because I'm still within the time limit. So I call almost 21 days later, but not quite 3 weeks. And I was like, hey, I'm just calling to pay this $25 ticket. Like I got a card, or I can bring it in if there's somewhere near me. And they said, oh, it's $100.
What?
I was like, whoa. Why is it $100? And they were said, well, because it doubles and then it doubles again. I was like, okay. I was like, but based on what? I mean, you guys
Why
gave
did it
me
double?
Yeah, I was like, why did I get something that said I had 22 days in the mail to pay this if it's not 22 days? And then they're like, well, that's just how it works. Like, because you went over your time. I was like, but no, you're not understanding me. Like, I don't know when you sent this in the mail, but I feel like the moment I get it in the mail, that's when my countdown starts. I was like, and they said, well, we sent it out on August 14th, which means that it was like 23 days. And I was like, okay, well, even then it don't make sense then, because then I only get the first penalty, which is $50, not
Right.
$100. I was like, so either way, like none of this makes sense. I ended up on the phone with like a manager at the bureau, the Traffic Violations Bureau of St. Louis. And I was on the phone with him for 30 minutes before he hung up on me because he said there was nothing else he would do for me.
Whoa.
And I was just like, because the problem was his story kept changing during the phone call. And I was getting pretty mad because I felt like he was just like doing this like whole like, sir, you have to pay your ticket and like this whole thing.
Welcome
And so like,
to Good Burger.
right. And so I was like, but the thing was, his story changed several times. He was asking me for like policy details. He's like, well, what'd it say? And I was like, well, I'm asking you what the policy is.
Yeah,
And
what
he's
the
like, well,
heck?
and he's like, well, what did it tell you? And I said, well, it said 22 days. And he said, well, sir, this is the 23rd day from when we sent it in the mail, and that's not our problem. It's late. I said, yeah, $50 late. I was like, if anything, that's a separate question. But I'm asking, it doesn't even make sense why it's 100. And he's like, sir, it's late. You have to pay it. I was like, by your own standard, it's not. You're not listening to me. He's like, sir, I really don't know what you want me to do about it. You have to pay your ticket. You're responsible.
This guy sounds like a real Noah.
And yeah, exactly. Yeah, I wonder if it was like bring your kid to work day and like Noah's dad works there and that like Noah's on the phone. But but anyways, so that happened, and like there was several other ways he was twisting it, and then I was like, okay, well, I need to. He's like, I don't have the authority. All of this time, and then he eventually says, like, I just don't have the authority to adjust it, even if I thought you were right. And I was like,
What the?
well, and I said, what is the point of you?
Yeah.
That's what I said. Like, as blunt as that is, I was so mad. I was just like, what is the point of you? I was like, I said, what happens if I just don't pay this ticket? And he said, well, I was like, can I go spend a night in jail? I mean, can I do my time that way? I mean, what do I need to do here? Like, I'll come down there right now. I got the time, because it's like, And he's like, "Sir, please." I said, "Are you kidding me? Like I'm not really sure what to do." And they said, "Well, if you don't pay it, it goes to circuit court." I was like, "Okay, what does that mean?" He's like, "Well, there's like $150 I was like, if I can't pay this now,
Goodness.
why do you think doubling it, then tripling it, and then taking me to circuit court and then suspending my license as well potentially? Now that might be one of those things that they say that they can legally do and they can, but I think that sounds like one of those things that they don't really do.
Oh man, I mean, this is so like, we talked about this earlier and we don't really want to get into it, but this is what a lot of these like protests going on in our city are actually about. Not
About
as much.
much bigger and more important and strenuous
No, no,
things, of
no, right.
course.
But like, oh crap, what is it
This is a
called?
microcosm of this of like how people get jerked around.
It's called a debtor's prison. That's like the term that they use now. They did that whole report on Ferguson,
Yeah.
and they were doing this kind of stuff. And so, like, exactly what happened to you would happen to people. And these were people who, couldn't afford to pay them. And
Right.
so those people just couldn't, so they wouldn't pay them.
Yeah.
And then that went into that court system, which then would charge them more. And they'd keep doubling up and doubling up and doubling up. And then these people literally are just owing the what
Yeah.
was that bureau for like the rest of their life. They're paying like $20 a month out of their paycheck just into this.
Like I said, if I can't now, I could have paid even the 100 or even done in payments, but I really didn't like it's one of those things where if I had to scrape it together, I absolutely could, but but I really don't like I have pretty fixed income, especially now that I bought a house. And especially since like one of our dogs like recently got really sick, and so I had to like put a bunch of stuff on credit, so I'm trying to pay that off. And I'm trying to get that done as quickly as possible. And so like another $100 is another $100 that doesn't go to that, you know?
Right.
And so it's just one of those things where it's hugely inconvenient, especially whenever there's stuff that they don't tell you. Like I don't know if this applies to the Traffic Violations Bureau, but I do know like a lot of like if you get a ticket that's not from their department, I think, and maybe even if so, I just haven't looked into them specifically. Like, if you get it before noon, you can go to the courthouse on that day that you got the ticket, and as long as you get there before noon, they'll charge you like 50 cents or a dollar. But if you don't, then you get to go through all of this.
Man.
And it doesn't make sense to me because it's like, okay, if I couldn't pay $25, how does doubling that make sense? And then how does doubling that make sense? And then how does sending me to a
How
court?
does any of this make sense for the intent?
Yeah.
Like the intent of we don't want people to park this way. So we're going to charge them a small amount of inconvenience fee.
And you may lose your license.
yeah, like that's insane.
There's an element to it where I can see some pushback where people go, well, hey, it's your responsibility to do that. And I get that. I really do. There is that element to it. But there's a point at which there's an absurdity. So like
Right.
if I steal something, that's completely wrong and I'm a bad person. But I shouldn't get executed with a katana
Exactly.
because I have done that.
Like society is built on a punishment that is equal to the crime.
Right. And
You
so
should
like
not lose your license for going 6 miles over the speed limit and being poor.
or pulling headfirst into a diagonal parking spot.
Right. And being poor. Like that's the thing,
Yeah.
right? Like that is one thing about tickets that's frustrating to me. And I haven't like studied this, so I don't really know the pros and cons of things, but it's always bothered me that like a ticket's like impact on your life is very much a sliding scale based on your income.
Yes.
So like it has no impact on somebody who makes an enormous amount of money. Like they really, really
Right.
just don't care or don't
Yeah.
need to care anyway, unless they could lose their license, obviously.
Right.
But like the cost of a ticket is not a prohibitive factor. Whereas
Or-
for somebody who, is working 2 jobs and has a couple kids and, they're just like trying to make it by or whatever,
yeah.
to them, a just over the speed limit ticket, which in some places is astronomical in price, can literally lead to them losing the way that they access their job.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it's completely crazy.
And it's sort of it's sort of, and again, I get that there's along the way there's elements of personal responsibility, but again, it's about like justice and the punishment fitting the crime. So
Right,
like
right.
for instance, if I was stupid and didn't pay it in a certain amount of time, that's my fault. But
Well, and you're
but
not complaining that they doubled it to 50. You would be
right.
annoyed because you're like, it's one day,
Yeah,
really,
yeah, yeah.
but you wouldn't be like upset. It's this
Yeah.
sort of like institutional problem underlying this whole system.
Right, and they expect you to just give in. Like that's what's frustrating too. And in my particular case, it was misinformation because I haven't even finished the story yet, which I'll do that in a second. But like
Ooh, okay.
the other problem is it's like if for people that can't pay something, have options. I was willing just on principle. I know something like this doesn't really exist, but like I mean it does in certain
Principle doesn't
parts of
really
the world.
exist.
Yeah, yeah. No, no, no. I mean, like, no, I mean, like, if they had an option where they're like, well, you can pay the $25 or you can volunteer 2 or 3 hours of your time this Saturday for like doing this and picking up trash. I would have
Oh,
on
right.
just principle alone done that. But that's the thing is, those completely logical options don't exist. I mean, they do in like certain cases because obviously there's people that do like community service required stuff. But like, why isn't that an option for
Yeah.
all anyways, back to the story though. So after that guy gave me the misinformation, I was talking to that same guy, and there was another problem that I had with him, which is what eventually made him
We're
hang.
talking about Noah, right?
Yeah, he eventually hung up on me, and the reason being was because because he said, I said, okay, well, if you don't have the authority to like change this, even if you agreed with me, like there has to be someone that can. I was like, because parking tickets get taken care of sometimes, whether like someone just like works in a higher up and like gives someone a break or
Right.
whatever. As like so I mean, like I need to talk to someone. I mean, is there like a court hearing or something like that? I was like, because this is something that I've been accused of that I disagree with. And I said, at this point, I'm not even arguing the violation itself. I'm just arguing the price of the ticket. Like I'm willing
Right.
to give you this $25 if you want it right now. And he said, okay, well, you have to schedule a such and such like thing, and you got to go downtown to the traffic bureau. And I was like, okay, great, let's do that. So, and I said, my availability is before 2 p.m. On weekdays, and I have weekends completely open. And he said, well, that's a problem because the only opportunity we have open is Monday through Thursday after 5:30 through 7:30. And I said, well, that's a problem because I work
Wait,
and I can't
what?
just,
That seems odd.
yeah. And so, I forget what they called it. Like they called him an adjudicator or something like that. These are apparently the people that you have to meet with. And
Sounds like
so,
a technical term. That sounds right.
yeah. And so I told him, I was like, it just doesn't work for me. I was like, I am not joking. I was like, it really is one of those things where like I've had stuff with school and internship that I'm doing where I already have to like compensate, and my boss is allowing me to like leave for a couple hours to meet with clients and then come back, which all of that is true. It's not a lie. And I was like, I really just can't stretch this. Like he's being very helpful and lenient, and I can't like keep taking time off that my boss
Right.
may not want me to take. I mean, it was a situation where he was allowing me to leave for a couple hours and then work 2 hours later once I came back, which is miserable. But nonetheless, like it's still like something that he's allowing me to do because he
Yeah, yeah.
can just say no. And so I was like, I really just can't stretch this. I can't take the time off right now because I'm only allowed to use it in certain periods, and which there's some truth to that, but I'm just not using my days off for something stupid like that. And he's like, well, I'm sorry, that's the only time we have. I was like, well, you guys have a phone call option though, right? I was like, I'd be more than willing to speak to someone on a phone call. And they said, well, you don't live 2 hours away and you don't have a doctor's note. I was like, right, but I'm talking to you and you're a human being. You understand my situation. Like, can you make an exception? He goes, no, we do not make exceptions for that. He said, if I make exception for you, I got to do it for everyone. I said, no, you don't. I mean, because you're the one making the exception. I was like, you literally don't have to. Like like you've been talking to me for 30 minutes now, and you know it's. And he refused to do so. And I was like, well, just schedule the date, and I'll try and figure out if I can make it or not. I said, I probably can't. And then he said, well, if you don't, then it goes to circuit court. You're charged $150 in addition, and you can get your license suspended.
Jeez.
And I was just like, "You got to be kidding me." Like, I'm doing everything I can, and I said that too. I was like, "I'm doing everything I can and going above and beyond here to try and work with you." And he's like, "No, that's your responsibility to pay it. Just pay the ticket." I was like, "But what if I'm in the right?"
Right. Yeah.
I was like, "That's the whole point, is like you get to go through the system, and you're literally telling me, 'I'm sorry, it's inconvenient for us to schedule you any other time.'" And I'm not asking for much. Like, I get, like, if I was someone that said, "I only have an hour a week that I have open," and I'm just being really unreasonable, but I feel like I wasn't. And so I go and I meet with the adjudicator this week, right in time for the podcast.
Wait, this was like yesterday?
This was yesterday.
Oh
And
man.
so I explain all of this rigmarole to the lady. She's looking at me with a very confused face and goes, "I don't even know what he's talking about." And I was like, and I'm not like exaggerating or making anything up because, like I said, the manager's story changed several times.
Right.
She goes, "Well, first of all, it like what he's saying with it being late is not necessarily true because you don't actually have 22 days, you have 15 days after an investigation has been done." And I said, "Okay." I was like, "Well, even then
Yeah.
it would only mean I owe 50, which I'm at least right about that part." And she said,
But also,
"Absolutely."
why didn't they tell you 15 days?
Right, the guy didn't know the policies. He
Yeah,
is a
that's
manager at the
absurd.
Traffic Violations Bureau, hung up on me, refused to schedule me over the phone, and didn't even know their own policies. He was asking me what my letter said. When he also, by the way, has it on file and could pull it up in front of him, I found out.
Man.
And so, like, this lady was like, "Yeah, you actually have 15 days." And I told her the whole sob story and everything. And I was like, "Look."
Could put on the puppy dog eyes.
Yeah, I was like, "Look, I said this whole entire situation has just been a huge pain in the butt." And I was like, "I disputed it within the time. I thought that I was paying it back within the time. Like, I even scheduled a time called within 3 weeks to do so, per my understanding, even if it wasn't correct." And I said, "I feel like I've tried to do, like, everything correctly here, and it's just been a big pain in the butt." And I was like, and furthermore, I told him about the courthouse thing, and I was like, "I think that's stupid that, like, you guys don't even really need this money. You're just charging at this point." I said, "It's really inconvenient and not great for me." And I said, "I have $25 with me right now. I'll just pay it." And she goes, "Yeah, that's fine." It took like 5 minutes. And she was like, "Yeah, you can just pay the 25. That's perfectly
What the
okay."
what the
I
heck?
guarantee you, if I would have just said, "I don't have any money," she would have been like, "Okay, don't worry about it." Like, that was
Man.
the vibe I was getting
It's like you
from
just
her.
had to go through enough layers to run into a
Yeah.
human being.
Oh, because the other thing that manager told me originally on the phone was he said, like, one of the other versions of, like, the thing was that he misunderstood and even backed off on himself, is whenever I said, "I have 22 days," and he goes, "Well, whenever the investigation was going on, that was just a pause." I was like, "So are you saying that, like, once they send me the letter, the 22 days just picks up where it left off?" And he goes, "Yeah." I said,
What?
"So you're saying that's why I have $100 fine, is because," I said, "So let me get this straight. If I would have called back in July to protest this ticket on day 21, which it would be due the next day."
Right, you'd have
I
one
said,
day.
yeah, yeah, and then I said, "When they send it, they send it out. It takes 2 days to get to me. I now am in delinquency," because he was insisting that it also went off the day that they sent it in the mail,
Right.
which also doesn't make sense because I could care because even from the time that he said that they filed and sent it out, I didn't get it till a week later. Like, which is baffling to me
It's
because
weird. So did the
typically.
letter not have like this is the date? It just said a number of days?
No, it didn't. Yeah, it
So
gave
how
a
are you supposed to
number.
know when they sent it? I
Right.
guess it's on the letter or something, or on the like envelope or something.
No, this is what he was saying. He said it goes by the day that we finish the investigation and send out and type up the report. I was like, "So you could sit on it for 3 days, then send it, and it takes a week to get to me." And he goes, "No, that doesn't happen. We normally send it right away, and it goes out the next day." I was like, "Well, I'm telling you, I didn't get it till 7 days later at least." And I said, "And this is the problem with this system, is it's my word against yours,
Right,
and
right.
you're just going to dismiss mine." And I said, "And furthermore, even if it did come in a somewhat timely fashion, it still doesn't make any sense because that means everyone has relative amount of days, because, like, it may get to you in 1 day and it may get to me in 3. So even if you think that's a reasonable amount of time, it's still different. So literally every citizen is at the whims of, like, the mail system. And imagine if there was like weather problems, like during the winter or something.
Right.
Like the whole system just doesn't make sense, and no one really cares. Well, except for the lady that ended up helping me and was like, "Oh yeah, just don't worry about it." Which I kind of figured that's what would happen,
Yeah,
which
that's
is what made me
crazy.
so mad about this whole long tale. So yeah, that was my uh epic.
Yes, the tale of Litzgamesh.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Oh man, that was worth the wait.
Do I feel? I mean, do you sympathize?
Oh yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
good.
That's a classic tale of bureaucracy run amok.
That means a lot because people should know that we're not like two like deadbeats that just sit around and are like, "Oh, I hate anything that doesn't go in my favor."
Yeah,
Like
we're just one deadbeat, and
exactly.
then me.
Exactly.
It's true. We struggle in life.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sometimes we have to go to movie theaters on our own and have to hide from
Watch.
spoilers.
Exactly.
So I don't know if this is a thing that you've experienced, but my career path so far has always been with me being the youngest person on my team. And so what that affords is
Hmm.
I can feel like if I'm doing well relative to my peers, I'm I'm doing really good for somebody so young, right? And then if I'm
Yeah.
doing poorly, it's kind of like, oh, well, but I haven't been doing this as long as everybody else, so it's just impressive that I'm keeping up, right?
Yeah.
And this same philosophy has sort of bled over into this podcasting project because I don't know about you, but I've been consuming a lot more podcasts and especially a lot more like newer, smaller podcasts since we started. I don't know. Have you really changed much of your podcasting consumption?
Um I've changed some of my podcast consumption more recently, but not necessarily for that reason at all.
Gotcha.
So, it's not really related.
So, so one of the things I've noticed is whenever it's another smaller podcast is you find yourself sort of comparing yourself to them and like where are we at, are we performing well for how young we are and that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
But like I haven't actually really found any podcasts that are younger than us because we're only, well, when did we start? We're a couple months, I guess, aren't we?
We started July.
Okay, but I don't think I found any that are after us, right? So it's always like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, we're doing okay relative to them or whatever.
Yeah.
Both in like numbers, which you can't really see the exact numbers of downloads, but you can see how their social networks are performing. But also like
Right.
quality of the podcast, quality of their website, and different things they have set up, right?
Yeah.
But the problem with podcasts, and especially this format of podcasts, is you kind of talk about stuff as you're going. You know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
we've talked about our listeners and all of that stuff. And some of the other ones that I've been listening to do the same thing. But I go back and I've been listening from the beginning on a lot of these, right?
Yeah.
So specifically, there's a podcast that I ran into. I think I may have shared it with you. I don't know if you've listened to it yet. It's called 2-Bit Geeks. Have you heard of this?
Yeah, I seen it. I haven't listened to it yet. I've been doing a lot of book reading, sorry.
Yeah, so no, that's fine. Actually, I think you would really, really like this one. Actually, to
Yeah, I'll
plug them a
check it
little
out.
bit.
I'll go ahead and add it.
It's a similar kind of thing as us, right? Two dudes talking, but they're a lot smarter than we are, and they talk about a lot of like philosophy and stuff like that. Anyway, the point is,
All that means is that we have a pulse on the people.
yeah, exactly. We are of the people. They're really highbrow over there.
The fact that I botched that figure of speech should tell you that. I mean, we have our finger on the pulse of the people.
What did you say?
We have a pulse on the people. I, I don't know what that means in any way whatsoever. So
It's our professionalism that keeps people coming back.
yeah, exactly.
No,
No thanks to Noah.
so I've been listening through from the beginning on theirs, and like from the very beginning, their quality and the interestingness of what they talk about is just immensely better than ours. Also, they're from New England, so they don't sound like backwater hicks, and
Hmm.
they use a lot better language than we do. And
Ah,
so I feel both dumb relative to these guys, and also just like I'm not performing as well. But I don't have the same fallback that I do in all of my other ventures, which is, oh, we're a younger podcast than they are, so
yeah.
because they were also a young podcast in their first couple episodes, right?
Well, just looking at them, and I've seen interactions on Twitter, so I haven't been completely ignorant of it. Because when you said the name, I knew exactly what you were talking
Yeah,
about.
I should
But
mention too, one of them might listen to us,
oh, really?
so be
Interesting.
careful. I know you were about to say
Oh, yeah.
something mean, and I'm cutting you off
Okay,
there.
let me rewrite in my mind.
Yeah,
Just kidding. But no, like I don't know. I think it's different because like we said kind of jokingly when we first did this, and it's absolutely true, is by choosing to do how we did what we did, um for one thing, it's a much more harder to market thing. Not the whole like two white dudes sitting around talking about technology type stuff, but because that certainly exists. Hello Internet is one of the best examples of it, and a lot of these like cottage industry podcasts around that
right.
or other similar ones are it's a known quantity of podcasts. But I guess my thing is like because of how we both to our name and like just the randomness of what we do. While we do kind of focus on technology and stuff like a lot, um, I also feel like we're more random and we're harder to fit into a box. But even if we could be, we sort of like purposely said like we're gonna market ourselves as like one of the most difficult to market things. Like we picked something that's admittedly one of the more difficult things to market because at any given
Yeah, but
time,
this is a genre that is kind of formed, right? I mean, this is
I
exactly what a lot
guess,
of these
yeah.
podcasts are doing. It's like it is a podcast about nothing, sort of, but what it's
There's
really about is two characters talking about their lives and things that they're interested in, and it's kind of like the topic of the show is the dynamic of those two people. You know what I mean?
I get that, but like I haven't listened to a ton of these, so I can't really compare to anything other than probably Hello Internet. But I noticed like of the episodes I listened to Hello Internet, there's certainly like special cases like they'll do a Christmas special where like they went and saw Star Wars, and so they'll talk about that for three
Yeah, yeah.
hours. But
Which we
but
do movies
right,
all the time.
but by and large, like for instance, I read or I listened to one of their I think it was a more recent one where they were talking about how like there was this like award thing that was
That
done
was
and
really
like
good.
they were just talking about how the rules were all messed up. They kept changing it and it's like this big like I feel like even those entertaining pieces of stuff that they talk about where they're talking about how like one of them is more minimalist than the other in their everyday life, like it still also always sort of revolves around their industry and what they're doing. Whereas what I mean is like we can really just go off on a thing that never has anything to do with anything. But I guess I could be wrong because I do remember a few episodes of theirs talking about like some cooking show in Britain that's really
Yeah,
big.
yeah. I feel like it's the same thing. Like I am a software engineer and you are a marketing major. And so
Yeah,
a lot of our conversations naturally, because those are the things we do and are interested in, revolve around those two things, right? And then we
right.
also both like movies. So like that's sort of the triangle of
Yeah.
topics that we tend to revolve around, right?
Well, not to be too cheesy though, but I don't really think we need to compare ourselves directly to others. I mean, obviously you
Oh,
can for
I'm not saying
ideas.
that we should. While I'm full of myself in some ways, I'm a very insecure person. And
Yeah, I
so,
just don't have a problem with it because like I feel like for instance, I do like those podcasts where you can kind of trust. I mean, I realize there's characters like they'll be weird or quirky or whatever, and but I feel like for instance, this two bit geeks thing. Just like looking through it, it looks like very interesting, and I'm probably definitely going to listen to it. And it does look like the topics can be kind of broad, um, but I don't know. Like I feel like we can be because we haven't nailed down something specific, like in our title. Um, we can we have the room to really do whatever we want to. But even if we do just end
but
up
with
falling
an
into this
obvious focus on water
yes,
towers.
right. Right. That's our niche.
Right.
Um, but
I mean, it's a big, broad niche. Obviously, we're dipping into a huge, big industry of
yes, exactly.
podcasts around water towers, but
But
maybe
no,
we can carve a little segment of that.
my point is though is that even if we do at the end of the day just completely end up being derivative, I'm not personally bothered by that.
I think what this really all comes down to is they were talking about in some of their earlier episodes some of the iTunes reviews that were trickling in,
Oh,
and
right, right.
while our listeners have been very supportive, and I've really enjoyed the interactions we've had, we haven't been getting the stars.
That's true. That's true. We
And
don't really have many reviews.
there's a decent chance that all of our downloads and social interactions are just my mom, right? For all I know, she's figured out how to create a lot of bots and done that. So really, what I'm doing here is
Including creating an entirely bot created podcast called 2-Bit Geeks that
that's a
frequently
good
comes
point.
out with new content and interacts
She's
with
like
us on
really
Twitter.
into like
and-
machine learning, and
Yeah.
it's like a podcast generator that's
Hey, your mom is brilliant and wonderful, but you are putting a lot of
Look.
faith in her ability to do these things.
All I'm saying is, Mom, could you point those bots at our iTunes reviews?
It's also very likely that people from rural Midwest Arnold aren't as into like leaving reviews and have the same practices as someone from like New England culture. I don't know where they live or what kind of area they're from, but it could
They're
just be differences in
up
parts of
there
the country.
eating clams.
Yeah, there's podcasts I love the heck out of that I don't think I've ever really left a review except for maybe once.
I'm gonna be. Did I tell you this? I'm gonna be in New England a week from Thursday.
You hear
I'm
that
gonna-
two bit guy?
Yeah.
Or
We need a.
you're gonna arrange to eat lunch with him somewhere, and your mom's gonna show up with Noah for some reason, and he'll just be like, "I got you back for that episode."
No, I'm gonna be in Boston for a weekend. Just me and my wife. Have you ever been up there? Anywhere up on the East Coast other than New York City? That almost doesn't count.
There was a time whenever my aunt and uncle lived in South Carolina, and I remember we took a trip by car and we went to South Carolina, and then we ended up going to New York and then to Pennsylvania. So yes, I've been through a lot of those states, not to like
Okay.
any length of time, but there's a couple of them we were there for like a week, and then
But never
And of course
all the way
driving
up
through
to
them.
like Boston.
no, I don't think quite that far. Like Pennsylvania and New York is probably the furthest up there I've been.
I'm excited. We're gonna go to Fenway and whale watching, and generally I think it's just gonna be like no kids, so we
Oh,
can
that'll
just
be
walk
cool.
around and relax.
Yeah, that'll be nice.
It's also going to be my first experience with an Airbnb. Have you ever used that?
No, that's one of those terms that like I should know what it is, but I always just ignore it because it just doesn't interest me.
So it's like Uber for hotels.
Gotcha. Okay.
So like
I got it then.
yeah, people can rent out their extra rooms or whatever. But the
Yeah.
one we did, it seems like it's just a hotel, but not like an actual hotel. Like somebody who owns an apartment turned it into a Airbnb hotel thing.
Oh, okay.
If our listeners have any suggestions for things to do in Boston, let us know.
Right.
Or let me
So-
know. I doubt Dan cares.
So let me just make sure to tie a bow on this then. So I think we shouldn't worry too much about what other podcasts are doing. If we start to get hate mail and negative stars, then maybe we should be worried, but I think we're fine.
No, see,
because
hate mail and negative stars is when you made it.
Yeah, I guess.
That's when people are listening that aren't your friends.
yeah. You haven't made it until you fear for your life.
Yeah. So Mom, what I'm really asking you is maybe give me a couple 1-star reviews,
Yeah.
I just want to feel like I made it.
Yeah.
Honestly, all of this is just a ploy to get those iTunes ratings up.
Right, exactly.
I-
yeah, honestly,
I don't
if
consider
you-
myself a competitive person, but I think what I'm realizing is I generally put myself in situations where I don't have to compete. And I'm oddly, as I'm listening to this podcast, which I really, really like, by the way, I have
Mhm.
this weird little competitive side that I'm like,
Yeah.
why are they getting all these reviews and we're not? What are we doing differently?
Well, hey, you know what? I'll just start calling people out. Nick, you're listening to this right now. Why haven't you left a review, man?
Yeah, Nick.
I mean, family members, friends that are listening to this. You're listening to this right now. I can start calling you out by name. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to get all the names of people that have liked the Facebook page. And every week, we are
Threaten
going to
them.
read off a list of names that have not left reviews yet.
And we will watch as our Facebook likes slowly
Yeah.
dwindle.
So many other like podcasts they'll do like they'll call off names for people that are supporting. No, screw that. We're
Yeah.
calling off names of
Screw
people
this
that haven't supported.
positive reinforcement. No, we're going negative reinforcement.
Got the phone book today, starting with A.
Yes. So everybody, in order to stoke my ego, is that the right term, or was that
I
was
don't
that
know.
dirty? I'm not really sure.
I think it would be.
If it wasn't, it is now.
Let's talk about all the options that would be dirty. Let's put a few minutes on the clock and come up with as many as we can.
Listeners,
All right.
just to make me feel good about myself, all that we're asking that you do is open up that iTunes app if you're on an iPhone. I have no idea how to do this on Android. I doubt you can, actually. You could probably do it on your computer, though. Either way, open up iTunes and in that little search box, search A Town FM, and then jump over, or I think you have to like scroll down or something to the review section and add your own. And actually, just pause this podcast right now and spend a couple hours to write something that would make me feel really, really good about myself, because that's what this is all about here, right?
All of this, one big ad. Yeah. There's a bunch of people on the other side of their podcast, like Ralphie and the Christmas Story, like, an ad? Are you kidding me? A crummy commercial?
So you sent me a text earlier today, but then after we talked about it, you said don't actually look at it.
So you didn't look at it then?
I didn't look at it.
I'll tell you when to look at it. So this was trending on Facebook today. So basically, there's this video game coming out called Marvel vs. Capcom, which I'm guessing is kind of a big deal.
Okay.
And apparently there's this like deluxe version that you can buy of it that's like $200. And so like they give you like all kinds of crap with it in addition, like collectibles in addition to the game.
Yeah. That's kind
And
of
so
a big thing with games now, right?
yeah. So being related to Marvel, one of the things that they threw in was they said a replica of the Infinity Stones. But not only that, they had promotional materials in several different angles that showed what it would be, and they would like glow and they look like kind of diamond and emerald looking.
Okay. They're like display Infinity
Yeah.
Stones. Okay.
Yeah, okay. So I'm going to send you this. This is what it should have been.
Okay, so I'm looking at it looks like a metal case. It's got 6 of these different brightly colored gems that are like glowing, and it's
Yes.
kind of this cool metal looking box thing.
Right. So that's what it's supposed to be, like the
Okay.
Infinity Stones, which are all those different things from
This
the
was
Marvel universe.
this is what people saw whenever they
Ye-
clicked buy on the what probably was like $200 or something.
Yes.
Okay.
This is what they got.
What the heck? Are
Big
those, like,
difference.
Easter eggs? They look like plastic Easter eggs.
That's what everyone's saying. And at first I thought someone was just being at first I thought they were just being sarcastic and being like,
Yeah, I mean, so hold on. How real is this? Because it looks like they just replaced the real things with Easter eggs.
that's what I thought too. And then someone showed a different angle and a closer up picture of it, and it's just like,
Have multiple people gotten these?
yeah, people have been getting them. Like I'll send, like, I could send you ones with other angles
I'm
too.
Googling it right now. I'm hoping for lots
Yeah,
of pictures.
it's great.
So I'm pulling up a Rolling Stone. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
This picture is even better.
Someone, and now I think it's sort of characteristic of the entire box because people were saying there was also like collectible figurines that they were supposed to get, and someone showed this like really detailed like Captain Marvel statue that was supposed to come with it, and then what they actually got, which looks like a pasted colored like like plastic
Now, see
statue.
the picture I just sent you actually. It looks
Yeah.
like it has those. I think the statues look fine. I mean, I don't know what you'd expect,
Well,
but
you
like,
should see the side by side comparison of again what's in the.
and we'll include these pictures in the show notes. Um,
Yeah,
but
it's
like this, so the
wild.
box I'd say looks pretty accurate, but it
Okay,
it
yeah.
legit
Now that I'm
looks
looking
like
at
they
it, it
just
does.
put
Easter
just
eggs.
Easter eggs in there.
Apparently, they like pulsate though, like colors, like
Oh
they light up.
yeah. Okay.
But they definitely don't look anything. Now I'm
So
gonna
here,
send you.
let me send you. Maybe this is what you're looking at too. So like with the lights off and the things glowing, I'd say it actually looks reasonable.
But nothing like that a picture. Like not even the same cuts. Like they're not the same shapes. Or
What the heck
did you
is
see
that?
that thing I just sent you?
What is this now?
Okay, so this picture, which we'll also include, is someone in that roundup posted. Apparently, this was real too. In all fairness, you could have gotten worse than the Marvel Capcom Infinity Eggs. Remember the Dark Souls Estus flask,
So
and
what
it's
I'm looking
like,
at looks like a 3D printed shampoo bottle. Like one
yeah,
of those shampoo bottles you get at Walgreens when you forget to get something and it's like the little plastic, you're
yeah,
on vacation and it's the little like plastic version. So
yeah.
it's
That's
just
great.
all green. So this was a different game's special edition
Yeah,
thing.
yeah, Dark Souls. Apparently that I don't remember that specifically, but something about it like triggered a memory, so I feel like I saw that like months ago or whenever that came out. But yeah, cuz apparently that was a thing too. Was like they sent like a flask or some sort of collectible with that game, and it was just looks like a perfume bottle that someone painted green.
Man. So I think the moral of the story here is if you're going to buy a fancy special edition of something, maybe wait until the actual pictures of the products show up.
Yeah, and if you're Capcom or Marvel developer of that video game, shame on you.
Oh, you know what? This reminds me of. This is going to take me a second to look up. I'm sorry. Hold on. So, a guy at work showed me this earlier today. For some reason, he was on Amazon and happened to notice a review of this GR Hose Krong plush doll. It's like a kid's crocodile, right? Have you seen this before?
No.
Okay, so so you can see the picture, right?
Yeah, yeah,
All right, so
yeah.
it's basically just like a plush little crocodile thing. So one of the reviews is a 1-star review, and it just says, "Actual product was a joke. This was really bad. Look at the picture of what I got." Scroll down to the bottom review. Do you see that?
Oh wow. That is
That's a
that is
lot worse, wouldn't you
not
say?
that is not as advertised. It is just like it
A
is like a
completely different
twice.
toy.
Hey kid, you like trucks? Here's a hula hoop.
And I
Like,
love how the review isn't like, "Oh, they sent me the wrong thing." It was just like, "This is really bad. Look at what I
so,
got."
hold on. These 5 stars have to be jokes because the first one is titled "Better Than Advertised."
I didn't notice this before. One of
Same as
them
my
just says
review.
"Krong, Krong, 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 Krong." Now all we need is the pizza robot and the constipated Krong. What is this? The constipated Krong doll with flushing toilet?
I don't- It was great. Got exactly what I wanted. I feel like these are all sarcastic because they all mention that it's identical to the picture. I feel like
Oh,
people are
that's a
just
good
trolling.
point. We'll include a link to this guy in the show notes as well.
That picture is.
Yeah, that's pretty bad.
This has got me on like a train of thought. Like, I know it's not exactly the same, but like, do you remember the Tuscan whole milk?
I don't remember the Tuscan whole milk.
That's one of those products that like it was so weird to buy on the internet. So people just like jammed the Amazon reviews with all kinds of like ridiculous reviews.
Kind of like the banana slicer.
Yeah, so this is like a gallon of milk being sold on Amazon.
What is this called? I'm gonna look this up now.
Tuscan whole milk. And the reviews are like just absolutely amazing.
There's 1,800.
Yes, there are so many reviews.
This milk is easily twice as good as Tuscan half milk. Save yourself some hassle and just spring for the whole. Truly, the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. Thanks, Tuscan.
There's like poems, songs, and just like
Once
many.
upon a midday sunny, while I savored my nuts and honey. Unexpected. My wife gave birth to her firstborn son in a bathtub filled with Tuscan whole milk.
Yeah.
She felt
People
no
just
pain at
act
any
like
stage.
Yeah.
Color choice is limited. Not compatible with iOS 7.
Yeah, it's like we could literally fill a whole podcast
man.
just going through these reviews, so we got to stop. But yeah, I just apparently there's other stuff. There's other products like that, like the banana peeler, I think is one of them. But we don't have to check that out. But yeah, there's like a list of like products like that on Amazon that people. No, don't cut. All right, so if you like our podcast or you still haven't gotten around to leaving us a 5-star review yet, you can listen to our podcast or find information about us at A Town FM on any platform from Twitter, Facebook to YouTube,
including one new one as of like a couple hours ago.
Stitcher.
Yeah, we are officially on Stitcher. Have you ever used Stitcher? I honestly don't even know why
I hear
I'm
there's
supposed
lots
to
of
do
problems
this.
with it. Well, is that the one that's always got issues? I don't know. I don't mean to badmouth Stitcher if they're actually really good, but I remember
we're on a
there's, like, some
platform. Don't use it.
I just remember there's platforms that that podcasters use. There's one that like famously like always has issues because of like how they load stuff up. But I don't. It may not actually be Stitcher.
I have no idea. I just know that other people do it, and
yeah.
So I was like, oh, I forgot. I should probably do that one. So
yeah.
It's available if you want to. I think it's just the same as everything else. So
yeah, and so all of these things you can generally just Google, or you can search at A Town, or not at, but just search A Town, no dash in it, and that'll show up. I noticed it really is sensitive to that because like I was looking for our podcast on iTunes earlier today, and I put A dash town and it didn't show up.
Yeah,
it was like way far back, and so you have to put A Town without a dash.
Yeah, and, if you do, or A Town FM is probably the best way to do it. All one.
Yeah,
word.
That's what I meant. Sorry, A Town FM.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
So,
It's I didn't do a very good job when we were thinking through naming. So yeah, it is a little weirdly sensitive. I might change our name officially to A Town space FM at some point, just to make it a little easier to find. But for now, just use A Town FM, all one word.
And if you already forgot about earlier when we name called all you people to leave us reviews, why don't you go ahead and do that now? The podcast is ending. It's a great time. You got your phone in your hand right now. That's how you're listening to this. Go to iTunes or Stitcher or whatever. I don't know what all platforms actually do the reviewing things, but it's best if you do it on iTunes. So go to iTunes. You can do that through iTunes on your computer as well if you have it on there, and just leave us a review. Say something nice.
So I'm on 2-Bit Geeks iTunes page right now, and they have 10 ratings. I think we can beat that.
Woo!
No, they have 8 ratings. I'm very confused. It says 2 different things. We'll go with 8 because that's easier to beat.
We certainly can. And then
these don't need to be quality ratings. Just, Mom, spin up some of those bots. 9 of them, preferably.
Yeah. Come on, guys. Make them the Noah of the podcast.